I know it is very confusing. You want to produce and release music in Dolby Atmos, but haven't yet invested in a full-blown studio with a multi-speaker system, so you need to use your headphones. But how would you know how everything would sound in 3D audio through just a pair of headphones? How would you know that your mix translates without listening in speakers? Once you understand binaural algorithms and binaural monitoring a bit, it's easy peasy. We'll get into it. Greetings, I am Pat and I work closely with major and indie labels and artists, helping them reach more fans and make more money. And today we're going to attempt to understand binaural algos and monitoring in Immersive a bit more, and also look at a couple of monitoring solutions that would help take your mixes to a new level. Let's start with the algorithms. The Dolby Binaural and APL Spatial are the two major algos that determine how your immersive production will sound on headphones. To oversimplify, how your music will sound in a 3D space, in a virtual 3D space. APL Spatial being Apple's decoding algo on Apple Music. If you're listening to Atmos content on Apple Music on headphones, you are listening to APL Spatial. If you are listening to an MP4, an MP4 export through the Files app on your iPhone, you are listening to APL Spatial. If you are listening to Amazon or Tidal, you are listening to Dolby Binaural. Get it? If you are using the internal renderer in your DAW of choice, I'll use Logic for this, then here's where the binaural metadata lies and how you change them. So in Logic, here's the Atmos internal Dolby renderer, and you'll see the monitoring format. It says Dolby renderer or Apple renderer with spatial audio. Apple renderer, personalized spatial audio profile. Here's the Dolby renderer. Here's the Apple renderer. You see anything weird? Dolby renderer, Apple renderer. Yes, of course, the Apple renderer discards all the spatial audio information, all the binaural settings, the virtual room in essence, and applies their own. So in the Dolby renderer, here are all your settings. Let's say we're going to set these to off, and our mids we're going to leave at mid. Let's do our surrounds, let's say near, okay, and maybe our left top, right top, mid, we're gonna do far. Our objects are here, as you see, and again, we can change these depending on where we are. Let's say we want this to sound a little bit closer to us in the virtualization of the room, right? We'll change it to near, and will be cool. Now in the external renderer, you will need the Dolby Atmos binaural settings plugin, which you'll see the assignment is here, left, right, center, LFE, and so on and so forth, and the binaural settings. LFE has no binaural setting, doesn't get calculated in the binaural fold down. So you see some of my settings here. The left surrounds are near. These are all mids. And also, I'm using an object bed. So you'll see those, consider those as just separate objects. And you get to choose here what the settings are that you want. Experiment. See which settings sound better to you. There is no right or wrong here, though there are some best practices which are really just logical. I mean, you would not put a kick on the top front and change its binaural settings too far, would you? Hey, I might just try this. But yeah, I mean, you get my point. Now, stay with me. Dolby Binaural keeps all that binaural metadata we looked at. Apple Spatial scraps all that and use their own. Moral of the story? You have to listen to both and make the necessary mix decisions that would make the mix translate well to both. But you know how they say that, especially in immersive audio, you need to check how your mix sounds at a real studio with real speakers?
Yes, yes.
But what if you have no access to one? What if you are traveling and want to do some work? Well then, use a virtual one. And here's where the next software we'll look at comes into play. Penteo 16 Pro Plus is a monster of a plugin whose main functionality is to upmix and downmix audio. I use it all the time to spread certain stems that I want to immersify without creating weird phasing issues in the process. Penteo can do that excellently, but in this video, we'll listen to its binaural algorithm and see how that can help us virtualize our mixing environment. So let's check out Penteo. Applied Psychoacoustics Labs APL Virtuoso is a staple in binaural monitoring. The brand new, just released as of the published date of this video, Virtuoso 2 takes things a step further, adding more HRTF profiles, virtual room presets, customizable virtual room acoustics, headphone compensation EQ, and loudspeaker EQ, and more, though some of these features are really for matching your studio or a reference room, something that is just genius, but applies mostly to professional engineers. Oh, and another very cool new feature is that you can now play back ADM BWF files, allowing you to listen to how your music would sound on different speakers in various rooms. A lot of different options here. The input configuration, you see all those different formats here. Auto 3D, Dolby Atmos 512 up to 916. Two different versions, which is great for 714. I wish they had a 914 version here. But guess 714 will do. These are the room presets. Let's play a little bit. Now this sounds more like a room emulation, right? You get to hear in binaural how the room itself would sound with your speakers. So it's a speaker and room virtualization type of simulation type of thing. Different than the other stuff, but if you can probably feel, I can in my headphones now, more of the low end sounds closer to my room than anything else. So let's go back and now compare this with the Dolby Renderer, the binaural, and the Apple Spatial. again, what is the purpose of doing this whole thing, right? You're supposed to see how your mix that you're working on in your speakers at your studio, how that mix would sound when somebody plays it through headphones, if they're playing the Dolby Atmos mix, right? That's the idea. You have to get as close to your mix intentions in binaural. See, this whole thing just makes you think a little bit too about engineers thinking that their mix will change. I mean, there's no one mix. There's like a million different ones. It's crazy. Again, remember, how would you use this, right? The Virtuoso you would use instead of your speakers. So now, instead of your speakers in your room, you're using Virtuoso and you're comparing how Virtuoso sounds to how the Dolby Binaural and the Apple Spatial sound. So you can make those mixed decisions, right? You can't print and submit the Dolby, Virtuoso binaural, right? This is a simulation of what speakers in room would sound like. So you can make those decisions when you're not in your room with your speakers. Make sense? Clarity of directional information and sounding natural is what we want from these monitoring solutions. Left, center, right stuff is easy. Heights are a bit challenging, but once you experiment a bit, you know what to use where. Front to back is where it gets the most challenging for most people, though once you understand what works, it'll become much easier. How do you make all these even better? Remember HRTF, the head-related transfer function? Basically, the morphology of your ear canal, head, shoulders, etc., this whole thing. Every person's is different, and most algos use averages, which may or may not work for you. That's where personalized HRTF comes into play, where your ears, head, etc. are all scanned and a custom profile is created, which is then added to your playback signal flow. Apple does that for its AirPod and Beats using the iPhone's camera capabilities. Those headphones also do head tracking. By the way, there's some amazing research on the effect of head tracking and how the listener experience is so much better than without it. And I'll put a link somewhere up here for you to check out once this video is done. So, Dolby does the custom HRTF profile through their Dolby personalized HRTF app, which you can then load into the renderer. Sorry, only the external renderer at this point. If I am not mistaken, if I am, if you think I am, please comment the truth below. Then you use something like the Supperware tracker that provides head tracking for any pair of headphones. I would be remiss not to mention Sony's VME, the virtual mix environment. It's a different approach, a bit more cumbersome since you have to get scanned at a pre-approved location, but man, this thing sounds incredible. I'll put a video up here with more details if you want to check it out. Now you are ready to do some Atmos mixing through binaural monitoring, but before you do, watch this video for more on mixing Atmos in headphones.